In a small rural village between the hills of southern Africa, there lived a young man named Jabari. His village was peaceful, with life following a slow and steady rhythm. Each day began with the golden glow of the sunrise and ended with the soothing sounds of nature. Birds chirping, leaves rustling, and the gentle murmur of a nearby river. Jabari was the son of a revered elder in the village, known for his wisdom and knowledge of the old ways. His father, Mzee Omari, was a man who had seen much in his long life, and he often spoke of the importance of faith and preparation in all matters of life. "A prayer is the shield that protects you from unseen dangers," he would say to Jabari every time the young man prepared to leave for the nearby town or travel to distant lands. But Jabari, like many young people, felt invincible. He was full of confidence, often brushing aside his father's advice as old-fashioned. Jabari had plans, big plans. He had dreams of building a life outside the village, of making his mark in the bustling city of Nairobi, where opportunities were abundant. He had saved money from his small business, selling handmade baskets to traders, and now, at 25, he was ready to take the next step, a journey to the city to start a new life. His father, as usual, warned him to pray before embarking on such a long journey. But Jabari's thoughts were consumed by the excitement of what lay ahead. "I will be fine," he reassured his father. "The city awaits me, and I will make my fortune there." The day Jabari left, the sun was high in the sky, casting a golden glow over the village. Mzee Omari stood at the edge of the dirt road, his eyes filled with both pride and concern. Jabari waved his father off, his heart racing with excitement. His father's words echoed in his mind. "Always remember to pray before you travel, Jabari. You never know what the journey holds." But Jabari was already thinking about the life that awaited him in the city. New friends, new opportunities, and the chance to build his future. The prayer, he thought, could wait. And so, with a final wave, he set off, leaving behind his village, his father, and the familiar life he had known for so long. Little did Jabari know that this journey would change his life forever. Before we dive deeper into Jabari's journey, take a moment to subscribe to this channel for more captivating African folk tales. Don't forget to like this video and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story that could change your perspective on life. The journey was long, and as Jabari traveled farther from his village, the landscape began to change. The rolling hills gave way to dense forests, and the roads became less well-maintained. Jabari's heart was full of excitement, but as the sun began to dip below the horizon, a sense of unease settled over him. He had not reached Nairobi yet, and the night had come too quickly. As he set up camp for the night, Jabari tried to ignore the growing sense of discomfort. The forest around him was eerily silent, the usual sounds of wildlife absent. He sat near his small fire, the flickering flames casting long shadows on the trees. The fire crackled as he poked it with a stick, the warmth from the fire offering little comfort against the cold that had begun to seep into his bones. He thought about his father, the words of warning he had heard time and time again. "Pray, Jabari, never leave without prayer." But Jabari had been too eager, too focused on the excitement of his future. Prayer, it seemed, was something he could do another time. Now, as the darkness of the night pressed in around him, a wave of doubt swept over him. Jabari tried to push the thoughts away. He focused on the fire, listening to the soft crackling sounds. But then there was something else, a sound that made his heart skip a beat, a rustling in the bushes. Then the sound of footsteps, soft but distinct. His breath caught in his throat. He stood up, looking around, but there was nothing to be seen in the shadows of the trees. "Is someone there?" Jabari called out, his voice betraying his unease. The silence stretched on, but the feeling of being watched did not fade. Jabari's mind raced. What if it was a wild animal? What if it was someone looking to steal his belongings? The thought of danger made him wish he had heeded his father's advice, but it was too late for that now. The next morning, Jabari continued his journey, his mind heavy with a sense of foreboding. The path ahead seemed to grow more treacherous with every step. The weather turned colder, and the once lush greenery now seemed twisted and unnatural. Jabari could feel the weight of his decisions pressing down on him. He thought of his village, his father's wise words, and the safety of his home. The farther he traveled, the more isolated he felt, and the clearer it became that he was far from the security of his familiar world. As the day wore on, Jabari's unease turned to frustration. He had never felt so alone. His phone had no signal, and there were no other travelers on the road. He had no choice but to continue, even as the path grew more rugged and the weather turned worse. That evening, Jabari found shelter in a small village on the outskirts of the forest. He hoped for rest and safety, but as he walked through the village, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The villagers greeted him with wary glances, and there was a chill in the air that made his skin crawl. He was eager to rest, but the unease that had been growing inside him began to surface. "Something is not right here," Jabari muttered to himself as he sat down to eat. His stomach churned with a mixture of hunger and anxiety. That night, the village was unusually quiet, and Jabari couldn't shake the feeling that the villagers were hiding something. But he had no choice but to stay the night, as the road to Nairobi was still far. What would you do if faced with the unknown? Let us know in the comments. And if you're enjoying this story so far, give it a thumbs up to help more people discover these timeless African folk tales. The next morning, Jabari awoke to find the village completely empty. The huts were abandoned and there were no signs of life. Panic began to set in. "Where is everyone?" he wondered aloud, stepping out of the hut into the eerie silence. The once lively village now felt like a ghost town. As he ventured deeper into the village, Jabari stumbled upon something that made his blood run cold. There, in the center of the village, he found a large altar. It was adorned with strange symbols and artifacts. The sight made his stomach turn, and an overwhelming sense of dread washed over him. Jabari turned to leave, but as he walked away, he saw something, or rather, someone, emerge from the shadows. It was a woman, her eyes wide with terror. She looked around as if making sure no one saw her before rushing toward him. "Please," she whispered urgently, "you have to leave." "They will come for you if you stay here." Jabari froze, his heart pounding. Who will come? What's going on here? The woman looked around nervously, her voice trembling. "The village is cursed. We were forced to perform rituals, sacrifices to the spirits. And now they demand a price." Jabari's mind raced. What kind of price? Was this a warning? But before he could ask another question, the woman disappeared into the woods, leaving him with more questions than answers. Jabari's heart raced as he realized that the woman's warning had been true. The strange feeling of being watched had never left him, and now, more than ever, he felt as though he was being pursued. Every step he took seemed to echo in the silent woods, and he could hear whispers, voices that were not his own, floating on the wind. He was not alone. Fear crept up Jabari's spine. He realized that the curse the woman had spoken of was real. The villagers had not simply abandoned the place. They had been victims of something far darker. He needed to leave, but he didn't know where to go. The road to Nairobi seemed endless, and the village had become a trap from which there was no escape. That night, as Jabari sat by a fire he had managed to light, he thought of his father. He thought of the prayer that had seemed so unnecessary, so insignificant in the face of his ambition. But now, Jabari realized that the absence of that prayer had led him into the heart of a nightmare. As he gazed into the flickering flames, Jabari knew that he had to act quickly. The village, the forest, the spirits, It all had to be faced. But how could he confront something so powerful without the strength he had been denied by his own pride? The next day, Jabari made a decision. He would leave the village, no matter the cost. But as he gathered his belongings, the earth beneath his feet began to tremble. The ground cracked, and a deep rumbling sound echoed through the air. Jabari stumbled back in terror, realizing that the curse was not just a superstition, it was real. From the depths of the earth, a dark figure rose, cloaked in shadows. It was a spirit, a being of darkness that had been awakened by Jabari's presence. The spirit towered over him, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Jabari's heart raced. He had no weapons, no protection, nothing but his wits and his faith. The spirit spoke, its voice like thunder. "You have defied the spirits, Jabari. You have ignored the signs, and now you will pay the price." Jabari's mind raced. The stories his father had told him about the power of prayer flooded his thoughts. Was it too late for him to ask for forgiveness? In that moment of desperation, Jabari fell to his knees, raising his hands to the sky. "I pray," he cried. "I pray for mercy, for protection. I was wrong to ignore the signs, and now I ask for your forgiveness." The spirit paused, its gaze shifting from anger to contemplation. For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. And then, with a deafening roar, the spirit vanished into the earth, leaving Jabari breathless and trembling. Jabari stood alone in the now silent village, the weight of his actions pressing down on him. The curse had been lifted, but it had come at a cost. He had learned a lesson that would stay with him for the rest of his life. Never, ever ignore the signs, especially when it comes to the guidance of those who have come before you. As he left the village, Jabari promised himself that from that moment on, he would always pray before embarking on any journey, no matter how small. The power of prayer was not just a tradition, it was a shield, a protection against the dangers of the unknown. Jabari's journey was far from over, but now, as he walked back to his village, he carried with him the wisdom of his father's words and the knowledge that sometimes the most important journey is the one that leads you back home. What lesson did you take away from Jabari's story? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more stories that inspire and teach us timeless lessons.